What's up, y'all? This is Jonathan Lippy, Beyond the Harmony, beyondtheharmony.com. And today we're going to do a little something a little bit different, but it's kind of going back to the roots of what Beyond the Harmony was initially supposed to be all about. As the song says, for the fans, we celebrating. And this is going to be part of a two-part video. But recently we received an email. If you guys ever want to email us, it's beyondtheharmony99@gmail.com. And received an email from a fan who attached a comic book of Flesh and Bone, which will be in another video. This one, I just want to read you guys this nice email they took the time to write out. I think you guys would relate to it. It's, you know, we all have our Bone stories, our Bone origin stories. And one of the things I thought about would be to have everybody tell their origin story, but the Life Apparel beat us to it, and they're already doing that. So if you want to see origin stories, my Doug story, go to the Life Apparel's YouTube channel. This person took the time to write it out, and it's a nice story. And anytime we hear people's Bone stories, it always causes you to reminisce back to when you discovered Bone and all your early memories through the golden era. And while everybody has a different story, there are very similar aspects and events and similarities of our journeys together. So we're going to celebrate that here today. So this is from Gary. He says, "Hey guys, huge fan of your work in providing such rare and entertaining insight into Bone's legendary and mythical legacy. It's invaluable to day one Bone fans such as myself. Attached is a Flesh and Bone comic from October 1997. Shit's gotta be super rare because I've never seen any mention of it online before. I shared it with some Bone fans on Instagram a couple years ago. You should put this on your YouTube channel." And we will, Gary. A bit of my history with Bone. As an 87 baby, I've been listening to Bone since Thuggish Ruggish Bone dropped on the Box channel in 1994, same. Even at 7 years old, their music connected to me so much. And luckily, I had a then 16-year-old uncle that lived with me, who was also a Bone fan. He bought Creepin' on a Come Up the day it dropped, and he and I would listen to that album nonstop. He was drawn to Crazy, and I've been a Busy fanatic since day one. Fast forward to late spring 1995. We went to the record store on the day we thought Eternal was supposed to drop. We didn't see an album called Eternal, but we spotted the Faces of Death re-release. So we bought that one, not really knowing what it was. When we popped that red cassette into the cassette player on the ride home, we were baffled. My uncle did not like it at all, but I was happy to hear anything Bone related. So he gave the cassette to me. Not sure whatever happened to that cassette. I wish I still had it. Side note, Gary, if you haven't seen this video I made about my experience trying to get Eternal and getting Faces of Death, it matches your story almost identically, except I bought the CD. I'll try to remember to link the video. If any of you haven't seen that video, I made it before we started Beyond the Harmony. It's worth watching. It's quite comedic, and it may reflect your own experience because, like I said, it reflects Gary's experience almost identically. So check that out. When Eternal finally did come out. Oh, and by the way, Gary, if you're a fan of Faces of Death, I don't know if you heard season 1 and season 2, we did a lot of Faces of Death research, and Cecil West has an enormous Faces of Death collection. Back to the letter. When Eternal finally did come out, he went to the record store without me this time, without telling me. And when he came back home, I heard him bumping the album super loud in his car in the driveway. I came out excited as hell to listen. I'll never forget, the song he was playing when I came outside to listen was Land of the Heartless. We kept rewinding Busy's verses over and over. Shit was bananas. Side note, when I read that part right there, I just paused reading and sat in my couch thinking about how amazing Busy's verse was on that song. Land of the Heartless is a fan favorite from Eternal, but we just like it all together because Crazy, Lazy, and Busy, all three of them just brought it. But when you just take a step back and just isolate Busy's verse.
As soon as I hit the scene, same team, fill up with a pistol, but I ain't had no gun. Come with original thugs, the shit, they flipping it with my tongue. Nigga, Cleveland is the city where we come from. And I showed them hoes up at the club that thugs don't run from the...
And just marvel at how creative it was, how we've never quite heard a verse structured like that. And I marveled how Beyond the Harmony, through the interview with 101, we decoded what Busy was saying on this next line. And we didn't decode it. 101 himself explained this line right here.
Fuck with 101 and them definitely got me back. And I'm throwing up sexy cause the nigga with the without my gap. Forever be ready to pull out me murder tools. He's not in that style. Oh, me put him in mind on murdering you. Rolling with all of them murderous truths.
And it was just like that moment. I was like, man, beyond the harmony, dude, the impact. You know, it's one thing that we started off with revealing stuff about Faces of Death, but to actually provide some insight on Eternal lyrics, Eternal being the holiest of Bone albums, I was just like, wow, that's pretty something. Now, in my opinion, the Julio Costanzo interview was the most consequential because that let us know that Santa Claus wasn't real. But Cecil even finding 101 was amazing, let alone Cecil finding K Chill at the very beginning.
Niggas, they claim to bang bang. When it comes to slang things, they don't. They know they cannot fuck me. One of them should've snuck me, but they hope that the guy be busy. Better let him be or they'll see. Nigga hanging, swanging, out of the midst of this is me.
Since then and before then, it's a one-of-a-kind, unique verse. It is amazing. Even though as a Crazy First fan, I always focused on Crazy's verse, I always have marveled at Busy's verse. And just think about how young Busy was at the time, writing such a phenomenal, never duplicated verse like that. In November 1996, when Flesh's solo dropped, I remember being at Warehouse Music with my dad, and I brought the tape to him to buy for me. I had my thumb covering the parental advisory sticker right in the middle of the front cover. He noticed and just laughed. He knew how much I loved Bone and bought the tape for me. My dad was a young father, having had me at just 17 years old. He was hip. Haha. By the time Art of War dropped, my uncle had lost his enthusiasm for Bone, focusing more on death row artists. But as far as I was concerned, I was still Bone's #1 fan. So when Art of War dropped, I told my dad to take me to the store to buy it, and he did just that. The day before, I had to go on a 8-hour car ride with my family on a camping trip. I'll never forget that trip and listening to Art of War album the whole way up, the whole time there, and the whole ride back. My uncle asked to listen to it, so I let him borrow my Walkman for a few songs while in the car. He wasn't really feeling it. Side note, yeah, my cousin was the same way. In fact, he didn't really even like Eternal that much. We both loved Creeping on a Come Up together. By Eternal, he was kind of like, eh. And by Art of War, he was fully checked out. And I remember telling him, like, hey, come on. Hey, Thug Love with Tupac. Come on. That song's cool, right? And he's like, nah, they fell off. And I'm like, nah, I'm still good with Bone. But yeah, Art of War was kind of like an exodus period for a lot of people. But it was also brought in a lot of people. Needless to say, when Heaven's movie dropped, I got it the day it came out. October 6, 1998. Such an awesome day and overall time period for me, having just started 6th grade and starting to explore rapping myself. I thought my CD was damaged or something because Marching on Washington and Yes, Yes, Y'all were ending too soon, laughing out loud. I had Waiting for Warfare on repeat, R.I.P. Capo. Side note, same here. I was like, yo, are these songs like cutting off? What's going on? And that Marching on Washington, all of it was just teasers. There was good hype for that Busy album with the Missing poster and all those big stand-ups. My buddies in my rap group, some of them were working at Blockbuster Music at the time, and they brought home those snippet cassettes for me and all the other promos. And it was nice that my friends thought of me to bring home some promo material that they knew I'd love. And even funnier, a couple years later when eBay was invented, the very first thing I sold on eBay was the Missing BB Gambini snippet cassette. I think I sold it for $20. The Thug Mentality single takes me back to a very special time too. Hanging with my older cousins, them introducing me to weed, getting into graffiti and shit. Just being dumb kids. I never bought or got into the full Thug Mentality album though. Maybe one day. I still have that gem to unearth. Wow, man. Yeah, double CD. I love BT&H Resurrection as well, but by the time that dropped, I was super into Eminem and Cannabis and more lyrical shit. But don't get me wrong, I love that album and still listen to it a lot to this day. Side note, you know, Resurrection is kind of considered Bone's most lyrical album. So if you're loving Eminem and Cannabis, you might, go look at that album again. Bone lost me at Thug World Order. I could only get into 2 songs, Bad Weed Blues and Not My Baby. Still can't get into that whole album or anything after that, group or solo. But I'm proud to say I lived through the first real wave and witnessed it all firsthand. Day ones know how much that is to be cherished. If you read all that, thank you for hearing out my personal Bone story. As popular as Bone is, they're still somewhat of a niche group as far as deep diving into their catalog. I really don't know very many Bone fans. If you're interested, check out my own rap releases on all streaming platforms, MZFPHRZS. I also write, sing for my indie rock band, Liar Starter, if any of you might be interested in that. It's dark shit, a la East 99 Eternal, laughing out loud. Peace and love, Gary Jr. Excellent letter, Gary. Great penmanship, great storytelling. And dittos on all that, although I will say with Thug World Order, that was the first blemish I noticed, where Bone wasn't absolutely perfect. You know, and while like Resurrection, I wasn't fanatical about the entire album, only because I'm a Crazy First fan, I still like recognized it as like, this is a good album. Whereas with Thug World Order, it felt like the luster fell off. And there were a few songs that just, the album wasn't bad. It just felt like, I think we got so used to Bone delivering so much abundance that the Thug World Order, because it wasn't a double CD, it just felt like not enough. I also think the yellow album cover to Thug World Order threw off the whole color scheme. I think if Thug World Order had an album cover that was more consistent with the rest of the albums, we might subconsciously like it more. They changed the colors, a lot changed with that album. And it felt like Bone for the first time became aware of themselves. Whereas all the prior albums, they were in constant invention, constant innovation mode. And Thug World Order felt like they actually tried for the first time. And they did a good job. I mean, think about how good Bone was. Like, how do you not like Bone? And even though Money Money felt like a strange song to use as a single, the verses are pretty cool on that. I do agree, Bad Wee Blues engineered wonderfully. I wasn't really a fan of Not My Baby, just because I feel bad for abandoned children and not taking responsibility. But in this case, you shouldn't take responsibility for something that's not your responsibility. Yeah, but Gary, you know, you said you didn't think there were many Bone fans. Well, we got 90,000 subscribers here on this channel, and we started the Skull and Crossroads Society of the greatest Bone fans that exist. So if you're still watching, drop a comment and say, hey man, give me the link to the Discord. And that goes for the rest of you listening. If you're still here listening, you're probably an excellent Bone fan, and you'll probably fit right in with us in the Skull and Crossroads Society. We also have membership on the channel, but the Discord is where we're at. It's got a life of its own. Even when Cecil, myself, and Matt and RC aren't in there, somebody's always discussing something awesome about Bone. There's so much in there. If the Beyond the Harmony channel was amazing, the Discord is what happens when you go to heaven. It's like, you remember that song by Tupac, Thug's Mansion? Well, this is the Bone version of it. You're surrounded by all, not just casual Bone fans, but the absolute most knowledgeable, amazing Bone fans. In fact, they could probably answer any question you have about Bone. You know, if Cecil and I didn't do it for you, one of those guys in there will. And if you were around those Bone boards in the early days, sometimes you look around and you're like, yo, this is the Hall of Fame right here. The Hall of Fame of Bone fans. Like, all the legendary Bone fans are up in here. And that's the community Beyond the Harmony's created. It's why I start every show, what's up Beyond the Harmony? Because everybody, all of us are Beyond the Harmony. If you're not subscribed to this channel and you're curious about this Flesh and Bone comic book, sub this channel. That video will be coming soon. Just know that Cecil, myself, Matt, RC, we're all working, man. You know, we got full-time jobs, families, all that stuff, commitments, just like you guys do. We do, but this is our passion. We do this whenever we can. And we do thank every Patreon member, every membership, every YouTube membership, all that. And all that helps and keeps us motivated and keeps us getting the technology and other neat stuff to bring new experiences to keep the Bone tradition alive. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed that letter. Thanks to Gary for writing it. Thanks to Gary for providing this Flesh and Bone comic book that we'll make a video for as soon as we can. We thank you guys for watching. And for all y'all that stuck around to the end, y'all got to see the preview of this. So on behalf of everybody at Beyond the Harmony, Cecil West, Matt Weaver, RC Thugster, Jordan Corey, I am the one and only Jonathan Lippy. And we'll catch you next time.